They said it could not be done. Not with that weapon, not in that terrain, not against that many men. Yet on a cold stretch of ground in Western Europe, one American soldier proved how wrong everyone was, and in just 48 hours, 95 German soldiers would never walk off that battlefield again. It began quietly, without cheers or warning, the kind of moment history often hides until it is too late to ignore. It was early morning on December 17, 1944. The Ardennes Forest was still wrapped in darkness, heavy with fog and pine smoke. Snow clung to broken branches and churned roads. This was the second day of what would soon be called the Battle of the Bulge, though the men fighting inside it had no idea yet how massive it would become. They only knew one thing. The German army was coming fast, and nothing seemed able to slow them down. American units were scattered, under strength, and surprised. Supply lines were thin, radios failed, orders were confused. In many sectors, German armour and infantry were already slipping through gaps, moving west with dangerous speed. Commanders were desperate for time to regroup, time to move reserves, time that no one seemed able to buy. Near a small Belgian village not far from the Outnumbered River, an American infantry battalion was trying to hold a narrow road junction. It was not a strong position. The ground was open in places, wooded in others, with shallow ridgelines and frozen ditches. The road itself mattered more than the map showed. If German infantry broke through here, armour would follow, and the entire flank would fold. The battalion's heavy weapons platoon was already exhausted. Mortar ammunition was low. Machine guns had been dragged through snow for hours. Men were cold, hungry, and running on nerves alone. In the middle of this chaos was a staff sergeant named John R. McAllister, a veteran of North Africa and Sicily, now serving as a machine gun section leader. McAllister was not famous. He was not young either. He was 32, older than many of the men he commanded. He had the look of someone worn thin by war, quiet, focused. He did not talk much about past fights, but the officers trusted him. When things went bad, they looked for where McAllister was set up. His weapon was the Browning M1919 a 30 caliber medium machine gun. Reliable, yes. Powerful, yes. But not meant for what he was about to do. The M1919 was designed for sustained fire with a crew, usually 2 or 3 men. 1 to fire, 1 to feed ammunition, 1 to watch flanks. It overheated quickly if pushed too hard. Barrels could warp. Headspace could shift. Everyone knew its limits. McAllister knew them too. And that was why, weeks earlier, he had quietly changed the gun. No official orders. No paperwork. Just field experience and long nights thinking about what failed last time. He had shortened the recoil spring slightly to speed the action. He had adjusted the feed powell too, reduced jamming when firing in long bursts. He had reinforced the barrel jacket using scrap metal from a damaged vehicle mount, improving airflow just enough to slow overheating. It was not pretty. It was not regulation. But it worked. Other men joked about his Frankenstein gun. Officers pretended not to notice. Armourers would have shut it down if they looked too closely. But no one did. They were too busy surviving. At around 0640 that morning, German infantry probed the road junction. Small groups at first, then platoon-sized elements. They moved carefully, using tree lines and folds in the ground. Snow muffled sound. Fog hid movement. American riflemen fired short bursts and pulled back. The Germans kept coming. McAllister's gun was set up behind a low stone wall, overlooking a shallow draw that led straight toward the junction. He had chosen the spot himself the night before. It gave a clear field of fire at 300 yards and a deadly funnel at 150. He had range. He had markers scratched into frozen dirt. He had ammo laid out in neat rows, belts covered to keep snow out. At 07:05, he opened fire, The first burst was short, controlled. The kind of fire that makes men hit the ground before they know why. German infantry dropped behind trees and logs. Others kept moving, thinking it was just another machine gun that would soon go quiet. They were wrong. McAllister fired again, longer this time, walking the rounds across the draw. The modified M1919 ran smoother than it had any right to. The rhythm was steady, almost calm. Spent casings steamed as they hit the snow. Men in field grey fell and did not get back up. German officers reacted quickly. Mortar fire began to fall, searching for the gun. Rounds exploded too far left, then too far right. McAllister shifted position by inches, dragging the gun and tripod with practiced ease. He fired again. By 08 Ruhr, the draw was littered with bodies. German attacks paused, then resumed from a different angle. They tried flanking through the trees. McAllister adjusted. He had expected it. He always expected it. His assistant gunner had been wounded by shrapnel and evacuated. For most of the morning, McAllister worked alone, feeding belts, clearing minor stoppages, changing barrels with bare hands wrapped in cloth. His gloves were burned through by noon. His fingers blistered. He kept firing. Radio reports filtered in. Other positions were falling back. The junction still held, but barely. German pressure increased. At 11:30, a full infantry company advanced with support weapons. They moved fast, shouting, firing as they came. McAllister waited. At 200 yards, he fired. At 150, he fired again. At 100, the gun roared non-stop. The modified feed system kept belts moving even as the barrel glowed faintly red beneath the jacket. Snow around the muzzle melted into slush. Men later said the sound was different, not louder, just relentless, like it would never stop. By early afternoon, German bodies lay in clusters. Some had fallen so close they were only yards from the wall. The smell of cordite mixed with blood and wet wool. McAllister drank melted snow when his canteen ran dry. He did not leave his position. As night fell on December 17th, the attack slowed. German units regrouped. American officers finally reached McAllister's position and stared at the ground in front of him. No one spoke for a long moment. A lieutenant quietly counted what he could see before stopping. He did not want to finish. McAllister did not celebrate. He did not talk. He cleaned the gun by feel in the dark, checking parts the way a surgeon checks a pulse. He knew it was not over. At 02:10 on December 18th, the Germans came again. This time they attacked under cover of darkness, using the road itself, believing the machine gun crew would be gone or asleep. They were wrong again. McAllister had not slept. He had been waiting, listening to boots crunch in, the snow. When he fired, it was at point-blank range. The next 24 hours would turn his position into legend, though no one would call it that yet. By the time the fighting finally eased, 95 German soldiers would be confirmed dead in his field of fire alone. 48 hours. One man, one modified machine gun, and the road junction would still be in American hands. But the cost, the strain on his body, and what that weapon did to him in those final hours is where the story truly becomes impossible. By dawn on December 18, 1944, the cold had become a living thing. It crawled into boots, stiffened fingers, and turned breath into white smoke that hung in the air too long. The Ardennes Forest was silent in the way only battlefields become silent, not peaceful, but tense, like the ground itself was waiting for the next shock. John McAllister had not slept. His eyes burned. His hands shook when he stopped moving, so he did not stop. He checked the M1919 again and again. Headspace. Timing. Feed tray. The gun was dirty, far dirtier than regulation allowed, but he knew better than to strip it fully in that cold. Metal shrank in freezing temperatures. Parts that fit perfectly in training could seize now. He wiped what he could, oiled sparingly, and trusted the changes he had made weeks earlier. The gun had already proven itself. Now it would be tested again. At 06:30, movement appeared in the fog. Shapes first, then helmets. German infantry was advancing cautiously, learning from the blood left behind the day before. These were not green troops. They moved in short rushes, covering one another, spreading out to avoid another slaughter. Somewhere behind them, officers were pushing them forward with urgency. Time mattered. Orders mattered. And someone had decided that this road junction had to fall today. McAllister waited until they crossed the invisible line he had fixed in his mind. He always did. The first burst shattered the quiet. Men dropped instantly, others dove for cover. The Germans returned fire, bullets snapping off stone and tearing into frozen earth. A round struck the wall inches from McAllister's face, spraying grit into his eyes. He blinked it away and kept firing. The M1919 chugged steadily, the modified action cycling faster but smoother than standard. He fired in disciplined bursts, never wasting ammunition, never letting the barrel overheat beyond recovery. When smoke rose from the jacket, he paused just long enough, then resumed. He was no longer thinking in words. His world had narrowed to angles, distances, sound, and recoil. German mortars began falling again. This time they were closer. One round exploded behind him, throwing snow and stone into the air. The concussion slammed into his back, knocking the breath from his lungs. For a moment, the world went white. He lay still, unsure if his legs worked. Then the sound of boots brought him back. He rolled, dragged himself upright, and pulled the gun a few feet to the right. The tripod legs scraped on stone. He did not look back to see what the mortar had done. He did not need to. The Germans were closer now, some within 50 yards. He fired. Men fell in the open, others crawled. A German machine pistol rattled from behind a tree. McAllister shifted fire and cut it off. The draw became a trap again, just as it had the day before. Bodies piled where cover ran out. Snow turned dark and slick. By mid-morning, German attacks came in waves, small groups first, then larger formations. They tried smoke. They tried suppressing fire. They tried flanking through the woods. Each time, McAllister adjusted, rotating the gun, dragging ammunition closer, changing barrels with hands that no longer felt like his own. At 11:00, an American runner reached him, sliding in behind the wall. The man was young, barely 20, his face grey with fear and exhaustion. He shouted that German armour had been spotted. Farther down the road. If the junction fell, tanks would follow. McAllister nodded once. He did not ask questions. He did not need encouragement. The Germans attacked again at noon, this time with more men than before. An entire reinforced company surged forward, determined to overwhelm the position by sheer numbers. Rifle fire cracked from all directions. Bullets clipped branches overhead. The air seemed full of metal. McAllister fired until the barrel screamed. Steam poured from the jacket. He swapped barrels in seconds, fingers blistering through cloth, pain flaring and then fading as adrenaline took over. The modified cooling and faster cycling kept the gun alive just long enough. Any other M1919 would have failed by now. He knew it. That knowledge did not comfort him. It only sharpened his focus. German soldiers reached within 30 yards. One threw a grenade. It bounced short and exploded, peppering McAllister with fragments. A piece of shrapnel tore into his left shoulder. Blood soaked his jacket almost instantly. He gritted his teeth, pressed a field dressing against the wound, and kept firing with his right hand steady on the grip. The attack broke. Men turned back. Some crawled. Some ran. Many did not move at all. When the firing stopped, McAllister sagged against the wall, breathing hard. His vision blurred. The world tilted. He forced himself upright again. He knew better than to rest. Not yet. At around 14:30, German fire slackened. Scouts reported that enemy infantry was pulling back, reorganizing again. American officers arrived shortly after, crawling up to his position under sporadic fire. One captain stared at the field in front of the wall, his face pale. They counted carefully this time. Helmets, bodies, fallen weapons. They marked positions on a map. When they finished, the number stunned even veterans. 95 confirmed German dead in McAllister's field of fire over 2 days. And that did not count the wounded, dragged away, or those who crawled out and later died. The road junction still held. Reinforcements finally arrived late in the afternoon. Fresh riflemen, more machine guns, anti-tank weapons. The German push in that sector slowed, then stopped entirely. The delay brought by that position helped higher command stabilise the line during the most dangerous phase of the German offensive. Only then did McAllister allow himself to be treated. Medics cut away his jacket. They shook their heads at the burns on his hands, the shrapnel wounds, the blood loss. He was close to collapse. When they tried to lift him onto a stretcher, he resisted until someone promised the gun would come with him. Only then did he let go. At the aid station, officers asked him questions. What modifications had he made? How long had he fired? How many barrels had he changed? He answered simply, without drama. He did not exaggerate. He did not minimize. He just told the truth. The modified M1919 was inspected days later by armourers and ordnance officers. Some shook their heads. Others quietly took notes. Officially, nothing changed. Regulations remained the same, but among frontline units, word spread fast. Small changes, field fixes, practical knowledge earned under fire. McAllister's gun became a lesson passed hand to hand, not written in manuals. McAllister himself never became famous. He received a Silver Star for gallantry, presented weeks later under far calmer skies. He accepted it awkwardly, uncomfortable with attention. When asked about the 95 Germans, he said only that he had done his job and that the gun had held up better than expected. After the war, he went home. He did not talk much about the Ardennes. He worked a quiet job, raised a family. Like many veterans, he carried the weight in silence. His hands never fully healed. Cold weather brought back pain and stiffness that reminded him of those 2 days every winter. Years later, historians would study the battle maps and note how one small position held when others failed, how a single road junction delayed a powerful advance at a critical moment. They would write about divisions and corps, about strategy and supply. Only rarely would they mention the staff sergeant behind a stone wall and the machine gun that should have failed but did not. They called it impossible because by doctrine, by design and by logic, it was. A medium machine gun was not meant to do that. One man was not meant to hold that ground. 48 hours of near continuous combat should have broken both weapon and soldier. But war does not always follow rules. Sometimes it bends around stubborn men, improvised solutions, and moments where experience outweighs doctrine. On those frozen days in December 1944, in a quiet corner of the Ardennes, impossible did not matter, because John McAllister was there, and neither he nor his modified M1919 was willing to let go.